Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm south of the harbor in the Curtis Bay community, down here clustered with Brooklyn and Wagner's Point and some others. We are literally in the shadows of the Curtis Bay Water Tower. We did a video on that earlier. We're not going to talk about that today. Today we're going to talk about the fantastic garden that I'm standing in with its turkeys and its sheep, its goats, its chickens, and its ducks. It's helping revitalize this historic community here. I'm thrilled that in a second we'll be joined by Charles DeBarber, who heads up animal husbandry here. But before I turn it over to him, let me just say a word about where we are and a word about how the garden got going. Curtis Bay had its start really in the early 1800s as a series of small farms. The farmers would sell their produce up in Baltimore in places like Bel Air Market and Broadway Market. And things started to change about 1850 when a group of land speculators, the Patapsco Land Company, they formed that, came and bought up some farms, hoping to convert them into residences. Things didn't get going as quickly as they would have liked, but by about 1890, so 40 years later, there was a streetcar line put in across the bridge that went over the Patapsco River, basically where the Hanover Street Bridge is today. As the number of residents grew, so did the number of industries. Here in Curtis Bay, one of the first big ones was the Davison Chemical Company. Among other things, they manufactured fertilizer. Next door in a place called Wagner's Point, industry got going even a little bit earlier than that. A gentleman named Martin Wagner moved his oyster and fruit packing company here, later added on a box making facility and a tin can manufacturing plant. During World War II, the Bethlehem Fairfield launching a ship a day, part of that effort was located here. And then after World War II, the number of oil storage tanks, those enormous storage tanks, proliferated. The water pollution and air pollution was pretty bad, coupled with periodic spills from freight trains, toxic chemicals from freight trains. There were real environmental issues and environmental justice issues. By about 2000, many of the residents had already moved away. A number of those who remained worked for several years, often at odds with City Hall, to have the city relocate them. So today there's no more residences in Wagner's Point. But here in Curtis Bay, there are, but and maybe not as dramatically as Wagner's Point, but it suffered decades, generations of disinvestment, challenges with jobs and with housing and with finding food. This is it was what was known as a food desert. The residents here had no access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and that's where we get to our garden. In 2010, a number of residents, with the assistance of the Open Society Institute, a nonprofit funding organization, and a gentleman named Jason Reed, took over this land through a program of the city's called the Adopt-A-Lot program, where neighbors can become stewards of public spaces. And so today, with its turkeys, with its bees, it's got the largest bee collection in a community garden in the state. I think a colony of native bats, sheeps and goats. It's a veritable petting zoo here. It is very much part of the engine that is driving a resurgence here in the historic Curtis Bay neighborhood. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charles DeBarber to talk about what's going on here today.
Hello there, I'm Charles DeBarber. I'm the Animal Husbandry Coordinator here at the Filbert Street Garden in Curtis Bay. The garden's been here for about 12 years. It initially started as a way of tackling the food desert we're in. It's a 35-minute walk that way to go get groceries. And people are very dependent on the corner stores, and about a third of them don't drive. It's the same with our neighbor Brooklyn. Because of that, it's a 25% markup for food that is like TV dinner quality food, which is why we see higher rates of diabetes and heart disease in communities like this. And because it's a 25% markup, it's a good example of how being poor is extremely expensive. In addition to that, we don't have a library in this part of Curtis Bay. It is a 30 to 35-minute walk to the Brooklyn branch. Because we don't have that, folks just don't have access to internet, and about a third of them don't have access to internet on their phones. So that's why we have a big antenna next to the tower here for Filbert Net, where we provide free internet for the immediate era. We are a community garden, meaning that we have about 40 plots where residents can just come grow their own food. On top of that, we have a production garden, greenhouse, and potato bed where we grow about 2 tons of produce for the community each year. In addition to that, we provide about 3,800 eggs through our birds, because as you can see, we have a little over 40 birds running around here between chickens, ducks, turkeys, and geese. And the chickens and ducks do an amazing job producing eggs. They go to our curbside pantry with the rest of our produce to just help make a difference, and that pantry is hit hard. Sadly, our local food banks, they're not quite here in Curtis Bay. They're more over in Cherry Hill and Brooklyn. So once again, it's a good example of being all the way down here in the southern tip of the city. We just have a lot of problems that the city doesn't have a big focus on. Well, the garden's been here for about 12 years, but I've only been here for about 8 of those years. And I started by introducing my bees here because I'm a beekeeper that just takes a lot of rescue animals. About 2/3 of our animals here are rescues. They're brought to us either by animal control or folks just saying, hey, we found a bird abandoned on the side of the road. I'm ashamed to say some have just been thrown right over the gate. And the goats have been here for about 5 years. We started with the first 2 goats, Cheese and Hazel. And years later, we have, I'm proud to say, we have 11 badly behaved goats. We produce about 100 gallons of honey, and that's the only thing we sell here. It's one of the ways that we keep the garden sustainable through sales of our honey. It's a very popular niche product here in South Baltimore, and we have always bent to the needs of our community. We become what they need. We started out as just a way of tackling food deserts, but then we found a way to produce food for the hungry. We found ways to take rescue animals. We found ways to provide internet in a data desert. We bend to what our community needs, and part of that is actually recreation as well. With recreation, we have movie nights here at the garden that are free to the community. We have open hours on Wednesdays through Sunday during the summer and employ local neighborhood youth through our Stewards program. We just had Autumn Fair about a week ago, and we had the Arabers down here with the horses and had horseback riding, and it was a really neat, very Baltimore affair. If you want to learn more about us, please visit our website, filbertstreetgarden.org. By all means, come visit us, check out our hours online, and please come and take a look, because it's a unique place to come. And on top, bring the kids. Our goats are also free to come feed 24/7 there at the fence. We have what you can feed them on the fence. They've become kind of the neighborhood pets, and most of them are badly behaved too.